I made a video recently. What I now realise is the worst video I've ever made. And I want to talk about it. Not just to say sorry, which I definitely am, by the way, but because this channel is all about us learning to be better writers together. And I thought this was a really novel opportunity to not make some generic apology video where I'm like on the kitchen floor, like just feeling sorry for myself, but to make a video essay breaking down my mistakes, my stupid opinions, so you can learn from them and never need to make them yourself. And do you want to know the strangest part of all of this? It's how I'm feeling an emotion right now that I didn't even know existed until I started feeling it a few weeks ago. The best I can describe it is it's like when you make a mistake, a genuine mistake that has caused bad things to happen, but you've learned so much because of this mistake. It's helped you identify and fix so many stupid opinions that you used to have that you can't bring yourself to regret it. And it's while feeling this bonkers emotion that I'm compelled to say sorry. I am so sorry I subjected you guys to that abjectly crappy video I made on Dune. But at the same time, I'm also compelled to say I'm glad. God, am I glad I made that crappy video essay, because it taught me that my entire perception, the perception I have of what makes for a good story, it's wrong. It's completely, fundamentally wrong.
Home, you're still so far. Wish I could know just where you are.
But let me stress, I really am sorry, despite the fact I don't actually regret anything. But in order to explain why, we're gonna need context.
Then yesterday.
Good. So I made a video on Dune a couple of months back, and my take was that the movie wasn't as good as it could have been because it didn't have a conventional story structure.
The original book's plot more or less looked like this, but because the movie adapted just the first half, the plot for last year's Dune, it looks more like this.
Yeah, and my take is that therefore meant the movie was bad. And like, making matters worse, I had the goddamned balls, like just the pure hubris, to attempt to rewrite Dune in that video. You know, Dune, like literally like one of the greatest sci-fi stories of all human history. I actually tried to rewrite it in that video. Thousands of people, literally thousands of people, were just so angry at me, just so pissed off that I had the balls to do that. And in hindsight, I entirely agree with those people. It was pure just hubris that I even tried. But that isn't why I took the video down. I did that because I realise now that in that video, I said something so problematic. And, you know, not problematic in the sense of, oh no, I'm getting cancelled on Twitter. Oh, like, not that kind of problematic. But more so, I gave out writing advice that is truly bad advice to give. Such bad advice, in fact, that if you accepted what I said in that video at, like, face value, you would be a worse writer for it. And that's not ideal, seeing as the point of my channel is to give out writing advice. I messed up bad. It was the worst video I ever made.
I thought Dune 2021 was bad because the inciting incident, instead of happening at the 12% mark of the story, which is the correct place to put it, it instead happens at the 50% mark of the story. Like, I mean, for Blake Snyder's sake, Villeneuve, what next? Having climaxes in the first half of the story? Having no climaxes at all? Villeneuve, you madman! You'd kill us all! Or so I thought at the time. But as a disciple of the three acts, I knew this right here was heresy. Look at it. Like, this has to be bad writing. So I made a video essay explaining this immutable fact. Then I released it. Fuck.
Is this how you get your sick kicks?
What? It's just an ordinary crabby. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, when you're a video essayist and you make a video which has got like a like bar like that, you haven't just released a hot take, you've made an outright bad take. And when so many of you turned around and told me how badly I missed the mark on this one, it broke me. And you do not want to know how much I wish that word was hyperbole.
And let me stress, I'm not blaming anybody but myself for how I messed up here, because I am the one who did the big stupid. But the main reason why the incredibly negative reception put me into, I'm not even going to lie, into an outright depression for a full 10-day period where I couldn't even do anything at all, it's not because of the negative nature of the feedback in itself. Very weirdly, I'm fine with knowing there are some people out there who genuinely hate the closer look. I'm not going to name names, but I'm aware of some content creators who actually hate me because they've said it several times that they just don't like me and they didn't know I heard them say it. But yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm totally fine with knowing there are people who hate me, which is a very weird thing to say. I don't know why that is. Maybe the fact I've got Asperger's, and that maybe that plays into it, because I've always been a bit socially weird throughout my entire life. The real reason why I got hit very hard by this is because when you release a take and 20% of your audience turns around and says just with total confidence, this is a bad take, it therefore must be a bad take. And when that take is nothing but you saying your core beliefs as to what makes for a great story, and then you consider how it's my lifelong dream, it's my dream in life to be a novelist one day. You get where I'm going with that. you get where I'm going with that.
It totally undermined my confidence that I could achieve my lifelong dream. And it took me a while to psychoanalyze myself and figure that bit out. And when I did, I knew immediately that a part of me had to die. And it did. And now I'm through the tunnel, I can't help but realise I've never been so happy to be so humiliated before. I feel so happy right now, I genuinely do. And it's because while I am content with being right, as is everyone basically, I'm more content with being wrong. While I only ever say my true opinions on this channel, and let's be straight, if any critic doesn't do that, they are therefore worthless as a critic because they aren't doing their job properly, I do realise I have a tendency to play the devil's advocate a bit too much. Where when I have an idea, an opinion, a take that disagrees with the masses, I get a little bit too excited to make that video. It's like my inner Palpatine comes out, and I revel in the idea that I'll cause all of this hate directed towards me because of this video. And that's such a weird way of phrasing it, but that is it. I am like Palpatine. It just fills me with excitement, the idea that people might hate my video. I don't know. I realise that's a flaw of mine, one that I need to work on. But my working theory as to why I subconsciously look forward to everyone attacking my opinions and embarrassing me. It's not because I'm a masochist and enjoy being publicly embarrassed. At least not entirely. It's because I learned a lesson a while back, and it's one that has helped me become a proper adult. It's that mistakes are unfairly demonized because most of the time they're nothing but good. It's that when you take the stance of devil's advocate, people are more likely to rigorously analyze your reasoning, meaning that they're more likely to unearth certain flaws and issues with your opinions, making you more aware of them, making it far easier for you to fix them. That's probably why I do it, constantly disagree with the masses, because it's like it's some kind of subconscious desire for self-improvement. It's also that I have read so many theory books on the craft, like 3-act structure this, show don't tell that. I've seen so many YouTube videos on the writing craft, and while what I took away from that all was useful, I'd honestly trade it all away for a handful of good mistakes. The kind of mistakes that, if you're reflective enough and humble enough, you'll get a whole semester's worth of learning out of it. And this whole deal, it has been the best possible kind of mistake. The kind of mistake that you'd just be a genuine fool to regret. But alright, here's what I've learned. So many of the rules we're all told a story must have to be compelling, they're totally optional. And we all know that expression, there are no rules to storytelling, right? But it's only in the past few months that I've realised how incredibly deep
deep that rabbit hole goes.
Here's one for you. What if you wrote a story where the rising action doesn't start at the bottom, but rather here? Scene 1 is your protagonist already on the adventure. It begins in medias res, and from here on, the quest only progresses as they continue down the main plot. While this happens, however, you offset the fact you've basically skipped your first act by interlacing flashbacks between each scene to fill the audience in. The audience is gradually piecing it all together until at the halfway point, the flashbacks have finally caught up with the beginning of the story. So you then continue the main plot in the conventional way from then on.
If you ask me, that sounds like a perfectly compelling story structure. I see no reason why that wouldn't work. And here's the kicker. Where is the inciting incident?
Seriously, where is it? Because you might think, well, it's in the middle, right? Because that's when it's shown to happen. But the problem is that doesn't really work, because the inciting incident is when the plot starts chugging along. Only this is more of a sort of flashback. The plot's been chugging along at full pelt for a while now, hasn't it? What's the other answer? Well, it's got to be right at the start here, right at the very start. But the problem is that doesn't pan out either, because the inciting incident is when the protagonist gets incited. Only they've been on their journey since before this point in the story. Ultimately, we're having an in medias res beginning, which is Latin for in the middle of things, and a story can only fit that definition if the inciting incident happens here, before the story even begins.
This story simply mutilates the traditional 3 acts. Blake Snyder would be rolling in his beat sheet-laden grave if he were to hear such a perversion of traditional structure as this exists. But to me, it sounds like a perfectly viable, intuitive, and downright compelling way to tell a story. And technically, this is a story that doesn't have an inciting incident.
Hi, Editing Henry here. I just realised that 2016's Deadpool uses this exact structure. Like, to the letter, that movie adheres to this. And yes, I am using my Game of Thrones collection to prop up my monitor. Shut up, okay, don't mention it in the comments. I bought a small monitor and it can't go up, okay? Like, this is concrete proof that you can tell a story that doesn't have an inciting incident, and it can go down extremely well. So take that past, Henry, you idiot. And if I somehow lose the war in the comments and everybody disagrees with me, again, how about we do the exact same thing, but this time we totally cut out the flashbacks. But what happened before the story is left as a total mystery, and that's part of the intrigue of the whole story. Until in the very climax of the story, what kicked the plot off, the inciting incident, is finally revealed as the conclusion of the mystery. If you thought the inciting incident happened at the midpoint with that last example, where in the Sam hell is it now? And there surely have to be so many other unconventional story structures which don't even have an inciting incident. I'm not clever enough to figure them out, but a lot of you guys are, I'm sure. So, like, go crazy with it. Like, there has to be so many unconventional story structures out there for you guys to invent and use. Hi, Editing Henry again. So I just thought of another one. What if we had a plot which had 3 inciting incidents instead of 1? And well, how would that work? Well, you do it in this sort of like leapfrog structure, where you had your first inciting incident, which then kicks off like a nice little plot, which leads to a nice climax with a denouement. Basic fare. But as you hit the denouement, you have another inciting incident which clicks off a new plot arc, and then you can have this pattern repeat 4, 5, who knows how many times, and it could still totally work as a story. And I imagine if you had a really nice glue tying all of these plot lines together, such as one grand plot arc, or a character undergoing a really compelling development, that could make for a really compelling story. And again, it shits all over what most screenwriting books tell us we must do. Blake Snyder. Save the cat. Sorry, I've got a bad cough today. I'm sorry, guys. Blake Snyder. Save the cat. What was that? The idea of midpoints and inciting incidents, while they are useful concepts and you should err on the side of using them, they're not immutable laws of storytelling. They're more so, I think, the writing equivalent of training wheels, where when you're just getting to grips with the ropes, you're just learning the craft, you should default to always using them, just so you can learn how to tell great stories. But then, if you want to level up your craft and move to the next level, you need to try telling stories without these techniques. Villeneuve did exactly that with his recent Dune. He shattered the conventions, and I retract everything I said in that terrible video. He did it very well. Okay. I don't retract everything I said. I do think the ending of Dune was the catharsis could have been a bit stronger. I do think that still, but everything else I said, I do retract.
And also, like, one other thing I've realised, it's that plot points don't make any sense. Because think about it, like, what is the definition of the term? Like, seriously, what does the term mean? A plot point is simply when something plot-wise happens. Is that it? Like, is that actually the term? It's really stupid, because when you stop and think about it, like, plot is like never a single number of arbitrary points. It's more so like a gradual flow of progression. You have things gradually just flowing into each other, with each scene having theoretically like dozens of things going on at any one time that push things forward. So, like, really, plot is AC, not DC, unlike the term suggests. So really, it's like plot segments would be a much better term, as you like divide your plot into like little chunks, and each segment has its own like flow of like progression. Like, that is probably a way less practical way to perceive it, yet it's also like a way more like it's way more true to the actual nature of the thing. Like, everything I've ever been told and have told you guys about storytelling, like, it's been a lie.
Okay, so maybe past me was being a bit too dramatic there with saying everything I've ever said was wrong. But honestly, like, I don't want to sound pretentious here, although tough luck, pretty sure I'm going to anyway. But it's almost like because of this failed video essay, I've had an intellectual like awakening where it's prompted me to question every rule and every law of storytelling that's ever been told to me. And my takeaway is that almost all of it, like almost all of the things we've been told are mandatory in order to have a good story, they aren't. They're not mandatory at all. It's almost like when you're at school, right? And the science teacher, when they're giving you a really complex topic, will simplify things down to such an extent, like they're borderline lying. But that's fine for the science teacher to do, because they're teaching you a foundation, like for where you can build your knowledge base upon and like progress from there. But the key is to progress from there, like not to linger there. Like, doing that's a terrible mistake. You will be a worse writer for it. And doing that is what I've been doing my whole life.
So another supposed immutable rule that makes for good storytelling is using want versus need. And if you guys don't know, want versus need is basically, so a character starts off with this want. Very simple, doesn't need explanation, they want this thing. But the catch is, they also have this need right here. And as the story starts, right, they desperately want this one, like desperately, they'll do anything to get this one. And this need right here, this is basically what they should be wanting, they just don't know they need to want. And so as the story goes along, they gradually realise that this want is hollow, and it's really this need right here. This is what they should have wanted all along. And gradually them realising that these two things need to swap places, basically. That is like the lesson they learn. That right there is their arc. You may also know this concept under the term the lie the character believes. It's basically the exact same idea, just worded differently. So here's the thing, using want versus need is a totally tenable technique that can work very effectively, but I used to believe it was necessary for character development, but I now realise that if you walk around and you always use want versus need every time you're thinking, can I give this character an arc, that is genuinely harmful to your craft. And here's why.
Let's say we're telling the story of a 15-year-old girl whose parents died, and her younger sisters need to be supported. Overnight, she's forced to become an adult, to get a job, to become the adult of the house, to keep her sisters out of poverty. And as the story goes along, it's bittersweet, because the relationship with her sisters has never been stronger, and they're given a chance to explore themselves, to have their own childhood. But it comes at the expense of her not having her own childhood, or her never getting the chance to explore herself. She was planning on university, she had a dream career, but she had to kiss all of that goodbye. And in the end, when she sees her sisters achieve their dreams, she's so happy she chose to support them. But so sad about it, all the same. To me, that seems like a perfectly compelling character development. I see no reason why that couldn't work. Only there's a problem, because where the hell is the want and need? There is no lie the character believes. She simply has a want to protect her sisters, she does it, and it's just about her struggling to do that. She's growing as she does it, but I don't see the lie she believes. It's nowhere there. But if you ask me, that character feels more human, more authentic than most protagonists protagonists to most Hollywood movies who just so happen to have very clearly defined wants and needs. Makes you think, doesn't it?
The more I think about it, the more I'm pretty sure that want versus need is an attempt to simplify the nature of human change, a lot like a scientist does when he simplifies like a science principle when teaching it to kids. But it is such an oversimplification that it erases most of the nuance, and using want versus need, while it can work very effectively, may not be the most compelling nor authentic way to depict human change. I've been thinking, although I'm yet to test it, that simply having a character go through adversity and then having them change because of it, in whatever form that change may come, that is a perfectly fine way to do character arcs where want versus need isn't even applied in any sense. I think taking that really simplistic approach might just be the ultimate way to do character arcs. I'm not sure, I'm going to test it in my next project, but that might be far more compelling and more natural a way to do character change than any other way. So here's what I think. I think that in terms of absolute must-have essentials for good storytelling, there are three. And so what is the first one? Well, characters. Pretty basic characters. Second of all, progression. Do you instill a sense of progress in the story where it never for a single second feels like things are stagnating? This can be a progression in the sense of the characters and their development, or just the plot itself. Whatever you do is good stories never feel like things are staying the same for too long, if you get what I mean. And the third part is delivery. Do you deliver on the promises of your story? And do you deliver on them in such a way where the viewer thinks as they come out of the cinema, or the reader thinks as they put your book down, that the time they invested in your story, it was all worthwhile? I think those are the three main pillars of good storytelling, where everything else is optional, and it's quite easy to find examples of stories which don't do other things, but those three are the main pillars, right? But again, that's just a working theory of mine, so feel free to shoot it down in the comments.
Everything else, it's totally malleable, and it's all totally optional. How has it taken me this many years to figure that out? I'm not saying that I will never use the 3-act structures again, that's a bit extreme, but it is to say that I will strive to find other ways to tell stories, because, sure, the 3 acts are useful, but they're also just suffocating. Using them, you're like a tree growing against an immovable metal thing, and it restricts your development. It stops you from growing in healthy directions, and sure, it gives you support when the winds are high. If you always use the 3 acts without question, you will always have a functioning story structure. But it's really sad how nobody considers them the main counter-argument to that, a counter-argument that I only recently started considering, because it's incredibly likely with each story you tell, there is a new structure out there, a different structure out there that would simply be a better fit for the story you want to tell. The perfect version of your story. It's out there, it's ready to be realized, only you'll never write it, because your process is so reliant on these techniques that you can't imagine yourself writing a story that doesn't include them. And maybe, tragically, you've been writing for so long, adhering to these false rules, that it's become impossible for you to not adhere to them. Torturing the metaphor, we've all seen those trees that grow into poles and fences, right? Well, this metal human object has become a part of the trunk of this beautiful thing of nature of this tree. And when you see these trees, you just feel kind of sad. You just feel this kind of melancholy every time you see this beautiful thing of nature that should be unrestricted, but instead it's confined and limited with this arbitrary human construct which is living inseparably into it. And in an old sort of way, you become that tree if you take the advice I gave in that crappy video essay, where these arbitrary human constructs have become a fundamental, inseparable part of your process. There are so many artists out there resigned to not achieving their true potential as they've fallen in love with the comfortable structure of using established techniques and formats, of outsourcing their creativity to those things. And we don't call it that, do we? The outsourcing of creativity. Although when you actually stop and think about it, when you use techniques and established formats, that's exactly what you're doing. You're outsourcing your creative thoughts to someone else, and so you don't have to think too hard about what you're doing.
Why do we not call it that, the outsourcing of creativity? Is it for the same reason that an alcoholic willfully ignores the dangers of long-term drinking? Just because it's just an uncomfortable truth. How every time we use an established formula that we stunt our creativity just that little bit more. I have no idea. I haven't got no idea what the answer is to that, but it's food for thought nonetheless.
I'm not sorry I made a bad video. I'm instead sorry that I ever peddled these techniques to you as if they were the be-all and end-all of storytelling, because I have been facilitating the complacency that I used to have in you. But there's something else to say, an important note to add. There is nothing wrong with using techniques created by others. There is, however, everything wrong with always using the same techniques. Because if you do that, you're not using techniques. You're using a creative crutch, and you simply will be an inferior artist to the alternate version of you from another universe where, when they come across the same problem twice, thrice, or maybe even 10 times, they strive to always apply a different solution.
The rejecting of the old and embracing of the new. That right there, that is every artist's responsibility. Because if you do the opposite, if you reject the new and embrace the old, you're no longer being creative. You're no longer doing things new. You're just regurgitating what's come so many times before. And if you do that, the quality of your art and the positive impact you will have on the world will be so much tinier for it. If you want to tell the best possible stories, to be the best possible artist, as well as be the best version of yourself, you must gain the courage to run away anytime you create something and the effort required is anything less than huge. You must, above all, gain the courage to be the archetypal artist.
This is my big takeaway. I now believe if there had to be a single trait that makes for a great artist, it would be discipline, right? But not the kind of discipline that you're initially thinking, right? Not just like conscientiousness, not the ability to simply work hard, more so the discipline to resist the seduction of doing what is easy. That's it right there. To feel a giddy excitement at the idea of doing the hardest possible thing you can when it comes to your art. That is greatness right there. That mindset, that exact precise mindset is what the greatest artists throughout history have had, I think. I think that's what their mindset. And the reason why I think this is because if this mindset is maintained over time, what is a hard task for you today, in a year's time will be dead easy. And for this future version of you in a year's time, what will be a hard task for them will become easy for them too, as they've endlessly just continued this cycle of self-improvement, getting better and better and better. And you'll be doing this forever. Ideally, never not doing it, never not choosing the hardest thing, as each victory, or even better, as each good failure compounds upon the last, realising your talent to such a degree, making you well-informed to such an extent that an alternate version of you from a parallel universe who never had the discipline to not choose the easy thing, they might see you and see how brightly you're shining, how much you fulfilled your full potential, and they won't be happy for you. They'll just be jealous. Right? That tenet of doing things not because they're easy, but because they are hard. I've always respected Christopher Nolan, and I think I've only just realised this precisely is why. Because he has this mindset. He has a mindset that all of us, if we aspire to be the best versions of ourselves, must adopt. It has no superior. It is the ultimate mindset for any artist to have. That is the lesson I learned.
So I've got a problem with the video essay space, including myself, mind you. There's a massive issue that we have, all creators within the video essay space have been falling for. The one exception I can think of is perhaps Hello Future Me. And it's an issue where we're not getting personal enough with you. Basically, when you watch our video essays, you'll see a construct. You're not actually seeing the personality of the person who made it. It's like it's filtered and it's all scripted and they're presenting a false version of themselves to you, and it's not like disingenuous, like it doesn't like feel like they're lying to you, but also you're not really getting to know the person behind the camera. I have been massively falling for this issue. Most other creators have too. I think maybe perhaps Michael behind Lessons from the Screenplay, Sage from Just Right, Jack from Now You See It. Basically every video essayist has been pretty much doing this. The one exception I can think of is Hello Future Me, because like he's been getting really personal with his content, and I think that's Tim. Just on the off chance you're watching, you're doing great. Like you've totally like you're not falling for this problem. Don't worry for it. Like I want to change that for this channel at the very least, because I wouldn't lie, I've been in a bit of a rut lately with the Closer Look. For the past year, I just haven't really been fulfilled by it. And you'll see that. I did that whole green screen. I went through my green screen phase, if you remember, with my Wonder Woman video and my Batman video and another one I did, I think. I was just testing and trying out new things, and I believed that the reason why I wasn't being fulfilled from the Closer Look was because I was basically doing all of the stuff I said you shouldn't do in this video, where I was basically sticking to the same formulas. And while that was partly it, I think most of the reason is just I wasn't getting personal enough with you guys. I want to kind of like twist the direction of the Closer Look, where I'm still doing video essays basically exactly like I always did, but I'm also going to make more videos like this, where it's sort of like me musing on the craft with you guys, as I'm basically just sharing my journey as I'm like learning lessons as a writer personally. And it'll be like videos like this, sort of like well-produced vlogs on writing. I'm very interested to see how this video goes down, because I'm pretty sure nobody at all on YouTube is doing videos exactly like this, where it's sort of like it's a relatively well-produced vlog that is all about writing. It's all about sort of the craft. That's basically like the mentality I had behind creating this, and do let me know if it worked for you. Yeah, if you want to see me make more videos like this, please like give me some positive reinforcement by like liking the video and giving a comment. I really could use some feedback on whether this works or not. Also, fun fact, I have a Discord server which is basically full of writers just like me and probably just like you, where we're just kind of trying to learn the craft together. So if you want to join like a community of like writers and like just talk about things and like workshop ideas and like talk about the struggles of writing life, do join my Discord server. There is a link in the description down below. You're welcome there, and I'm very active there too. So if you want to talk to me and like ask me questions about like specific like writing issues you've got, I will answer them in that Discord server. Also, please do remember to support me on Patreon if you can spare just like $1 a month. Like literally just like $1 a month is a huge difference, because you guys are doing that as a group, and it's really like adding up to something that's making a meaningful difference, and I'm like using it to hire and invest and hire editors to help like improve the production value of my videos. Literally just like $1 a month is huge, and I massively appreciate it. There is a link to that and my Discord server in the comments down below, or the description down below. Anyway, I hope you like the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.